Hello and welcome to Bend the Knee, a Song of Ice and Fire podcast. I am Sir Matt, the Bud Knight.
And I am Sir Ezra the Watchful. Welcome to Follow Up Friday. We've got a lot of Ravens.
We're getting ready to record this, and I'm thinking when I look at this tomorrow morning, it's going to be 2 and then something.
Yeah.
2 hours and then something.
We'll see. It's I think one of the reasons why is I, Sir Ezra, just returned from vacation.
Literally just returned.
Literally, guys.
Just got off the plane.
No joke. I literally just got here as fast as I could. Sat down with Sir Matt, and we are ready to get after this. I had been reading a few of them on vacation because it's what I do just to keep up on stuff. And I was like, boy, we are in for a big episode. So we've even got some that we've had to put on the back burner and save for the following Friday, which is always good for us because the more the better. More just makes the show go a lot. It's more interesting, I guess.
Yeah.
So now, one thing before we get started, okay? I think we've what did I call
haunted.
This? What's that?
We're being haunted.
Well, we're being haunted. Yeah, we're being haunted. But we've got ravens flying in from every corner of
The realm.
Of the realm, and even across the sea now.
The narrow sea.
This is kind of getting ridiculous. We're getting to the point. We've been eating our humble pie for a while.
Yeah.
And I'm done with it.
Yeah.
I'm done eating the humble pie. Okay. I just want to come out and say it. I think we're moving up there. We're working on those Facebook likes. Once we get to 200, we're gonna get the group going.
We'll be there close.
I really want people just pouring more content into that. You learn so much from a Facebook group, so
I do.
Really hoping we can get to that. But yeah, been noticing some. I've been listening to some other podcasts out there, and
they claim they're like the number one.
They claim
they're the best.
They're the best. They're the number one. This and that.
Well, I'm just going to go ahead and say it. If you do an iTunes search for Game of Thrones, we're the first thing that comes up.
Well, I'm also going to go ahead and say.
I'm just saying it.
The name of the show is Bend the Knee.
Yeah.
I don't know. Every 5-6 episodes, we just need to remind people. Who they're dealing with here.
Yeah.
So
it's not. Oh, hey, no. Bend the knee.
just had to throw that out there.
Yeah.
So we love to have a little friendly little competition with other podcasters, and we have had some correspondence with them here recently, and I'm interested to continue that back and forth dialogue that Sir Matt and I are having. We will let you in on some of that. If you're on Patreon, you'll be getting a newsletter with some upcoming cool goodies that we will.
We do our Call the Banners podcast.
So
remind people.
But anyways, just had to make that quick disclaimer.
Quick news. I will say people have been getting their shirts. Been getting a lot of messages. People are really liking them. Glad that our patrons are enjoying those. Or Adam Parker. I am always in communication with him.
Yep.
Speaking of which, he also won the trivia this week.
Yeah, he did.
Trivia was who leads the faith of the seven, and it is the High Septon, not the High Sparrow. Did have a couple people say the High Sparrow because in the show you have the High Sparrow.
Right.
And so I actually had one person, Devin Lewis, who was like the High Septon. No, the High Sparrow. I was like, he's like, I should have stuck with it the first time.
Right.
Sir Robert Newcastle, he's always right there. But we're Adam Parker. Boom. We did have some people get tricked up. Also that we changed the trivia. Just kind of threw it in and ran.
Threw it in the middle. Some people like that, though.
They thought that was cool. So I think we're going to continue that going forward. Lady Jamie, Rachel Gomez, some other people chimed in as well. So congrats to Lord Adam Parker retaking that.
I think we're going to have a little bit more diversity on that leaderboard because just different names up there because of where we've put it in, in the episode. So it's buried in there, friends.
Yeah. So could be at any moment.
Yeah. Yep. Is it now?
No,
it's not now.
Well,
no. Okay.
But anyway, so just wanted to get that out. Well, I think we just got to go ahead and dive right in. Sorry,
that's fine. Let's do it because we've got a lot to get to.
So, Regine sent us a huge email last week, kind of going over history, another big historical connection.
Yeah.
She had mentioned that she, last time we talked about that, she's working on her master's thesis and doing all this Game of Thrones
Regine's
stuff.
lovely.
It's awesome.
She's so lovely.
It's awesome. We always butcher her name because we're terrible, ignorant Americans.
But we love you, Regine.
We do. And we're going to get to it. We're just going to have to put it off for another week. Unfortunately, Sir Ezra just got back, literally stepped off a plane.
Yeah.
And we really want to do that one. The justice it deserves. That just requires a lot of
we lean on Sir Matt for some of that too.
Yeah. So Yeah, so we're still working on that, but she did also send us a message on Instagram. It's just a cool picture. If you go and you look at any of the art of the Iron Throne from the books, and Gur has said like this is how I more envision it. The difference between the Iron Throne and the show and the books is totally different.
Yeah. You know what? Okay, last plug for this because I really want this to happen. If we had the Facebook group, we could be talking about this and everyone could just go look at it right now. We'll get there, but I think what we'll do is after this we will post that for you guys because it's very, very, very different from what it's just people have read the descriptions in the books and they've drawn.
Yeah, if you look at the show, I mean, it still looks cool in the show. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
In the books, it's like
What if you go back
in
to
the books? It's like 10, 20 feet tall. Like it's.
Yeah, if you look at the show and then think about what we know in A World of Ice and Fire and the number of swords that were collected by the enemy,
it's more like in the show it's kind of like hundreds. In the show it's like in the show it's like hundreds. In the books it's like thousands. And the other thing you got to think about in the books they talk about how like it stabs them as you sit in it, and it's running your fingers through it, and it kind of cuts you and stuff like that. And I mean that's how what's his name Maegor dies.
Yeah.
Remember he gets like stabbed through the back of the neck. Yeah. Did the throne kill him? Yeah. So.
Yeah. Was it one of his wives? Who was it exactly?
Yeah. So.
All right. So that was pretty cool. That was neat to see that image from her. We'll share that on Facebook. But now we got a little something.
Got a voicemail here.
Yeah.
Got a voice Raven here. So gonna go ahead and play this.
Let's play this.
Greetings, podcast. I am Steven from the woods here of Miami, of Kendall, and I'm listening through the back episodes. Big fan of the show, big fan of Game of Thrones YouTube videos. You guys have me on the verge of starting to actually read the physical and or digital copies of the books, and I'm listening to you guys talking about Catelyn hearing that possibly a Dane could be Jon Snow's mother. Could that just be an allusion to sort of Jon Snow's such a great swordsman that the people of the North are kind of like, what if, the Stark and Dane blood are in Jon Snow's blood, and that is why such a dope swordsman. Because they do talk about how skilled Jon is, and I'm pretty sure Jon is like just a little bit better than Robb, like straight up sword to sword, right? Do you agree? Is this possible? Love the podcast. Thank you. Bye-bye. My watch has ended.
Wow.
Yeah, there is that weird little.
Yeah, that's
Google Voice freaks out sometimes.
Yeah.
Also, every time we get these, Google translates it for you.
Yeah.
And I was listening to this, and it says like, you guys have me on the verge of starting sexual read of the physical and or the digital copy. I was like, what is going on? It's always funny. It's just it's so weird. It just always freaks out.
But Sir Steven, thank you.
Sir Steven, yeah, thank you. In response to your Raven, I would actually go as far as to say I think Jon is quite a bit better than Robb.
Yeah.
We don't really. The only time we get Robb one-on-one swordsman battle is when he's like dueling with Joffrey, and even that, the way it's kind of described is, But Robb does win battles. Robb wins battles for a year.
Yeah, as a commander.
Yeah,
he's very very cunning. He does actually lead a couple. He's in the thick of it. So that's for sure. I mean, he's still heavily guarded and protected. He's the king of the North, right?
Yeah.
But I don't know. It would be interesting to see if Robb would have had a more one-on-one combat.
Right. The only time I think we really hear about Robb's actual combat experience is when it's at the end of a Game of Thrones when he it's like in a Catelyn chapter. It's when he is leading the North. Remember, because a handful of Northerners go to take on Tywin Lannister as it's like a feint, right?
Yep.
And they basically are going to their deaths, and they know it.
Yep.
They know it, and so Robb and those guys take Jaime, and you get Catelyn's perspective, and she's just seeing she's flashes of people. She even sees Jaime Lannister. I think she sees Robb, and Robb comes back and he's injured, but I want to say Robb kind of mentions I got a couple guys or something like that.
Yeah. And they mentioned with Jamie too, like book and show, like just how many people that it took to sort of bring him down. You know what I mean? For him to I don't know. I think though, John, I would say actually though, from what we know and what you can pull from the text, he is a better swordsman.
Oh, for sure. I definitely.
There's not enough evidence to say that Robb is better or what have you. And plus, John's really actually more in the thick of it, right out there in danger. Has to rely on his sword play. Well, I mean, not really. I guess it's more just in the yard. He's practicing, and then he'll use it when he goes north and faces the wildlings a little bit here and there. But yeah. So, as for him being a Dane, though, I mean, yeah, the whole Ashara connection, being mentioned. We mentioned that when we first started the reread. That's a name that can't be mentioned at Winterfell. Catelyn is told not to ever bring that up again. Tender subject there for Ned. And we've speculated a lot that Jon is possibly a Dane. Now, to wield the Sword of the Morning, I think you have to be that caliber of swordsman. Now, another situation here is that you have people who believe that the King Beyond the Wall, Mance Rayder, is not actually who he says he is, and that he's a Dornishman, and that he is from, one of the Seven Kingdoms, Dorne, I'm guessing, right? And that he could perhaps be, can't believe I'm even saying this, Sir Arthur Dayne. So when we have that fight with, I think he's glamored, and he pierces Rattle Shirt. Have we talked about this before? I think we've talked
a little bit. Yeah,
I don't know if we've actually really gotten into the thick of it, but Jon fights what could be, a really established swordsman. Whether it's Mance Rayder, or I'm sorry, whether it's Sir Arthur Dayne or Gerald Hightower, or whoever it may be, someone renowned, someone significant, and so he gets bested by Rattle Shirt. So, or what was his name? Lord of Bones.
Rattle Shirt.
Okay, cool. I was making sure I got it right. So, but he holds his own, and I think, he could be in the running for, a possible sort of the morning position. What are you looking up? What's going on?
I have the Catelyn chapter pulled up where Robb is where they capture Jamie, and I'm just sifting through it to see if Robb kind of mentions anything. It doesn't. I don't think it doesn't say anything about him being. He has blood on him, and Catelyn is worried that it's his. And he talks about it's like a Northerners that they were riding with. So it doesn't look like he actually mentions anything specifically about like one-on-one combat.
Yeah. There might be more stuff, and people who are listening can let us know if there's in follow-up chapters people talking about what he could and couldn't do, or how he performed on the battlefield.
Mostly like his legend is just about he hasn't lost and stuff like that. But so really the only thing I can think of that specifically that just comes to mind is when he's like training with Joffrey. But even then, I think it just appears like Jon's way better.
Yeah, it does. Well, here's another thing too: is neither one of these guys have ridden in, I don't think, tourneys, right? Tournaments where that's basically where you can kind of like, show your skills off to the realm and stuff like that. So they haven't had that chance. And you look at someone like Tywin Lannister, right, who's more of a commander, and more of just like a governor. He's a lord, in which he was hand of the king, for the Mad King and stuff like that, and ran the kingdom, smoothly.
That's not true. We do see Jon fight. Robb fight. Robb fights the wildlings when Bran is attacked. When they go out riding, and that's where they find Osha.
Okay, yeah,
yeah. But I mean, he's fighting. Like
right.
he and Theon are fighting wildlings. I mean, they just tear them apart.
Yeah, good point. Yeah. There's just not a lot. There's. I wish there was more. Because I really like Robb a lot actually.
That is one thing. That's another thing where you get a lot more of Robb in the show.
Yeah,
and that is a lot of these other characters kind of get like their own angle in the show.
Yeah, and he seems more like someone who can hold his own in the show. In the book, he's the young wolf. I mean, he's.
Well, yeah. I mean, he's Ned Stark's son. I can't imagine he'd be a slouch.
No. He'd probably be. I bet you he's as good maybe not better than than Jon Snow, but some of them are better at archery, some are better at swordsmanship, riding, whatever it may be, jousting, different things. So, but anyways, what do you think about the whole Jon Snow, being a Dane though?
Oh man, we've talked about this before. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff about it. And we've talked a lot about is Mance Rayder Rhaegar? Is he Arthur Dane? And then there's the big theory of, is Tormund Giantsbane? Is he
who is he?
Gerald Hightower? I keep always wanting to say Otto Hightower. Who is Otto Hightower?
Otto Hightower was, remember, the Hightower who was hand of the king to one of the old Targaryen kings.
That's why it keeps. Yeah. It's so fresh in my mind. I know, and I'm just like, I was like, why is that one?
Viserys,
right? Yeah. So Gerald Hightower, the White Bull, right?
Yeah,
the White Bull. Yeah, that's what, because he's a King's Guard. Yeah,
right. Yeah.
So there's a lot of theories that Tormund is him, and I was actually just reading or listening. I was audiobooking A Storm of Swords right now, and in Jon 2. There's this interesting part. I don't know why I just found it so interesting. I texted Sir Ezra immediately. He's on vacation. I texted him. And I was like, hey, I just listened to this chapter. And I'm like, I was at work listening to it. And it just really caught my ear, I should say, is that it is when Jon is being taken to Mance Rayder after he has killed Qhorin Halfhand. And it's like him, Tormund, and Ygritte, and they're all going. And Tormund is trying to convince Jon, even though Jon is he's killed Qhorin Halfhand. He's pretending to be like, I'm going to join you guys. I'm going to leave the Black and leave the Night's Watch and become a wildling. But Tormund there's just some really interesting things. He's talking about how he got his name, and he almost kind of describes it as if like he kind of like chose it. Is the way it kind of comes across. And then he refers to the free folk as the free folk. And then later in the chapter, Ygritte says, or Ygritte, however you want to pronounce it, she just says free folk. So I don't know why this stuck out to me, but
go ahead.
It's like if I were describing a scenario and I was describing a scenario to say someone from another country, but well, Americans, we do this, right? I wouldn't say the Americans, unless I was perhaps talking about it in a past tense. So it just seems odd to me that he uses the word "the." And now, like, if I were describing like a historical event, I would be like, well, the Americans fought the British or whatever. But it's just weird. It's he refers to them as the free folk in like a current tense, which I don't know why. I just found it really weird. There's a lot of theories that like a podcast, which we don't mention anymore. I guess YouTube channel we don't mention anymore.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's fine. They're fine.
Yeah.
In their videos, that's what they talk about, is that sometimes he uses like pirate like language and then kind of shifts back and then makes it almost seem like he actually like realizes he's speaking differently, so he has to catch it. So
yeah, we'll have to find you guys some examples of that, or if you find some of those, send them our way.
There's a lot of Tormund theories.
Yeah, there are actually.
There's other theories about, is Qhorin Halfhand, is he Arthur Dane? Is he Sir Oswald Wentz, I think is one of the other Kingsguard?
Yep.
Because Qhorin Halfhand is described as being like a boss. I mean, an absolute, very skilled fighter. He like stays out in the winter. He stays out up north longer than anyone else ever has. And
well, and there's things with Mance and his referencing to him as a brother more than just at the Night's Watch. It seems like there's a deeper connection there than just the Night's Watch. Yeah. So I don't know.
And Tormund is really convincing Jon to try and sleep with Ygritte. You really should do it. Like, so why? It just seems odd.
Well, I mean, why not?
Right. I know there's that too, but it just seems kind of odd that he is so willing when all the other wildlings like the Thens and stuff don't trust him, even after he's gone up and kind of persuaded Mance that they're going to lead the attack on Castle Black. But Tormund is still just so willing immediately to help him.
Yeah.
So
there's something there. I mean, there's not. I mean, a lot of those though. Well, it's just tricky because you're pulling somebody. You're pulling like the word, putting the or the in front of something. You know what I mean? So it's some people might say
we go down some deep.
We do, but I mean, some people might say that's a stretch. But really, we've seen in the past that Gur can do things like that, where the subtleties, and the way in which someone speaks, or past versus present tense, matters. So yeah. Anyways, all right. Thanks for the voicemail though. Should we move on to the next?
Yeah.
Next Raven here. Let's see. Who do we got here? So this is Grant Mattingly, I think. All right. Well met, good sirs. I was listening to the latest podcast over Eddard's chapter, and I had a thought about the Butcher's Boy. I believe he was killed because he would have been another voice supporting Arya's story. And that's a good point. In front of the king, the Butcher's Boy would have told the truth, and I know he is lowborn, and I'm not sure his words would hold much weight, but a story exactly the same as Arya's would have been the deciding factor in the king's judgment. That, I believe, is why he was killed. Curious if you have any thoughts on this. I enjoy all of your podcasts and look forward to future content. Your friend, the Yellow Knight.
I know, yeah.
Oh, I love that. That is so cool. So
yeah, actually, that makes a lot of sense as to why he would do it, is because Joffrey kind of, Joffrey freaks out.
Yeah, I mean, I could see Cersei being the one behind that, though, right? Saying, run this Butcher's Boy down, kill him. Just not even caring. You know what I mean? So, again, if the Hound is ordered to do that and is actually told to kill the boy, that would kind of fit with the whole... Yeah. We had several people send us a raven about... I think Lady Kelsey sent us a raven about this, too. I'm not sure if we put it in...
talked about this, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure if we put it in the show, but I think it was just before we started this episode she sent us something. And she was kind of saying the same type of thing, that it doesn't fit with his character. We were not really sure why the Hound would do that.
Which would also maybe add to the reason why during Battle of Blackwater Bay, when Stannis attacks, that he is like, all right, I've had enough of this. I'm out.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. But now this whole bit here with him telling the truth with Arya and her story, I get that that's why maybe Cersei would want him out of the picture. Also, just Joffrey doesn't like him and wants him, wants him punished and whatnot. But it's another step, though, isn't it? To kill the Butcher's Boy. Why kill him? You know what I mean? And I think, Sir Grant the Yellow Knight here is onto something, that this could be to protect Joffrey and make him look like, he was in the right, or that it's just, his word versus her word type of thing. So, yeah, man, I honestly think that could be it. That would fit with the, he's ordered to kill the Butcher's Boy versus just did it on his own, right? The Hound's not going to just cut this boy down for no reason. He can easily, ride him down, knock him over, break a leg if he has to, or break an arm or whatever. Doesn't have to cut him in half, and then he could tie him up and bring him back. But they don't want his voice heard. So I got to say, Sir Grant, I think it's a great point. And Sir Matt and I were actually talking, were we not, that it could be someone else could have killed him, right?
Absolutely.
So someone else could have killed the Butcher's Boy, and then
the Hound is just the one who's actually like bringing him back,
right? And then just doesn't refute Eddard's statement or whatever. Just doesn't feel the need to correct him, and that it wasn't him who killed him. Let Eddard think whatever he wants. He doesn't care, type of thing. So, but yeah. So I think that's pretty straightforward there. Poor Butcher's Boy, man.
Yeah, I know.
It gets the Hound on Arya's list.
It does,
and I think then we, learn a lot more about him, and in the reread process, we question it completely because it just doesn't seem like something he would do. So not that he really cares a whole lot. There's this ambiguity that to these characters and stuff. They're not wholly good or wholly bad, But he would definitely seem like he'd have to be ordered to do something like that.
Yeah.
So, all right, what else we got?
Okay, here we go. Sir Robert of Newcastle. Once again, Sir Robert of Newcastle here, going to drop a new theory I've been tinkering with. I've been pondering The North remembers, saying, "What if the Night King has no qualms with the North and the real enemy is the South? Cersei could be the real target. What if the Night King is a Targaryen with sights on reclaiming his family's throne, or a Stark wanting to avenge the North? Would that make sense if they will decimate East, heading down to King's Landing before coming up North for a final battle of supremacy with the Warden of the North?" I know this is just a rabbit hole, but this is just my theory.
Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. Because we did like a prediction on how we thought the Night King might invade the Seven Kingdoms.
I think it was a Patreon episode, wasn't it?
No, I think that was when we were doing theories.
Right. Just
on Thursdays. So that we each had I think we had Sir David the Huntsman with us, and we were talking about the different approaches that they could take. And one of the things that I said that they might do is to come down and attack White Harbor and take that fleet that Lord Manderley is working on, and maybe use that to then come after King's Landing. So that kind of fits in. Sir Robert and I are, based on what I was my prediction, it's kind of the same idea. He would come strike King's Landing, take out the South quicker, almost bypass the North, or come right down, the East, versus coming down through the neck. You know what I mean? And if the South is conquered, and they would see a real true whore at that point, they would see, that would be an interesting way to do it. I mean, to be honest with you, because you always think about it coming down to the North, and they're used to it. They've heard of the story. They still kind of believe in Grumpkins and Snarks. But the people in Dorne, they don't care. Yeah. They have no idea why the wall's even there. They don't give that a second thought, right? So if something this dark and sinister were to come down the narrow sea in such a way and strike at King's Landing and go south and conquer, and then the North is the only thing that stands against them, that'd be pretty epic.
Yeah.
So
and that's the other thing, is that the South and everything don't care. And I'm in a Storm of Swords right now, and it's the part where I just got to the battle of Castle Black, right, where the wildlings come.
Yep.
And it's so interesting because Jon is talking about his dad and Benjen's plan. Do you remember this? So Eddard Stark had come up with a plan with Benjen Stark as to how to kind of reman the wall. And the plan was to give older sections of the wall that were no longer occupied to other lords, and then have them pay tribute to the Night's Watch. Pay their taxes to the Night's Watch instead of Winterfell.
Wow.
Yeah.
I did not remember that.
Yeah. It's like a quick little section. Yeah. And then Jon just talks about how, it was definitely something that would have to be in during the spring, because else no one would want to do it. And you'd have to convince the Night Watch to give away some of their land.
So they're holding their lands,
right,
and stuff like that.
Because they're talking about how the Night's Watch it's not really fortified from the south.
Yes.
Right. And then he goes into the fact that at one point you had like the Lord Commander at Castle Black, and he was kind of feuding. Like the Night's Watch had its own like civil war between the
different
East
keeps.
Watch and Shadow Tower, and they all kind of
Yep.
And so the whole point, and then he talks about how Benjen was explaining it to him, and he says that the whole point is that it's not supposed to put itself into the qualms of the realm and all this stuff, and it's just really interesting. It's a really cool thing. So then you have the Starks here who are trying to help the Night's Watch more than anyone else.
Exactly. So
more than anyone else, just as you were saying, the North is the ones who actually cares about it, because it doesn't affect anyone else.
Well, and there's two plays on the. So Sir Robert had mentioned here the North remembers,
right?
And so he's talking about that in a different way, but in this sense, what you just mentioned with manning the wall, that's really interesting. I do kind of.
It's like it's. I remember
not the fighting that happened, but I didn't.
Yeah, it's not. It doesn't even seem like it has really any.
But they're vulnerable from the south,
right? Yeah, completely vulnerable. Yeah,
that's why
the Night's Watch is completely vulnerable from the south.
That's why the wildlings do what they do.
Right.
That's why they're able to attack that way, and they're hoping that they can open the door and let the horde in. Wow. Yeah. Very interesting.
Super cool plan, though.
Yeah, absolutely it is.
I actually, not that I want to dive off of your theory here, but I actually think that the Night's Watch itself is kind of like it is a kind of a dumb idea. If you really wanted it to work, you should just have it be towns. Like, you know what I mean?
You mean just like have it inhabited? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it should just be towns at the wall where because that way like you're just building up population. You know what I mean? Like you're just building up population.
Yeah.
And then it's like then you just train those people. You almost have it like kind of like a Spartan type race where you're just constantly war type training your civilians. And then
I get you.
Instead of
just having like the celibate
men,
type of men who can't have offspring.
reproduce. Yeah, and then it's like then you're always searching for people.
I could see I actually kind of see your point there with like if you're a man of the Night's Watch and you can, I get why they have their vows, right? We understand why they can't marry and have children and stuff like that because they have married the wall. Like that's what they're married to, defending it. But the idea that you'd have a culture of people who that was their legacy, was to defend the Seven Kingdoms from the others, the Great Other. That's pretty epic, you know. Yeah. So that's kind of cool. But yeah, you're right. I mean, it is. But the Starks and Winterfell are the only ones who take it serious and only ones who really kind of see its value. Right. So you'd almost need an attack at the South in some regard to make people think like, well, what's going on up there? People to start to kind of care what's happening in the North and beyond Winterfell. So.
Well, I mean, that's the thing is we don't really know that we still don't really know the Night King's plan. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
That's why you and I were speculating on what he would do.
Yeah, we don't know.
Well, because
the only thing I will say though is like at least in the show, and the Night King hasn't really been kind of shown off in the books. Mm-hmm. The Night King in the show definitely has. I mean, he's definitely going to have an epic battle with Jon Snow because they have the stare down moment at what is that called? Not the Frost Fangs.
Yeah, ask me too quick. It's the place where all the wildlings are.
Right, Hardhome.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. And then when he's staring down Jon Snow on the middle iceberg, you know, when Thoros Amir is injured, and then the Hound throws the rock and hits one, and then like he throws it and it lands on the ice, and they all realize they can run across and stuff like that. Yeah. So
now one more thing though.
The only thing about this with Cersei being the real target, maybe he does have he sees like them as they killed Eddard Stark.
Sure, if they're more if there's an allegiance or some sort of deeper ancient tie to House Stark, you know, and that we had someone a couple weeks ago talking about winter is coming, the North remembers, you know, how those words could be mean different things, and how the Starks could have some type of tie, you know, to that land.
And the other thing is that they talk about Catelyn talks about it's like her first POV chapter where she goes into the Godswood where Eddard Stark is cleaning off ice after he kills Garrett. Excuse me. And she's talking about how all of the other houses, their motto is like something uplifting, right? Except for House Stark, which is winter is coming. And winter, it seems gloom and gray. But what if winter is coming is actually, you know, just total rabbit here, like a good thing, like winter is coming. Like we're like the Night King.
Thank goodness
is coming. You know what I mean? It's like
one
our
day.
ally. You know, I don't know.
No, that's what I'm saying. People have taken that approach with it, and it would kind of fit. Because one thing Sir Robert is saying is the Targaryen connection is that he could be somehow, you know, did you catch that in the Raven? Yeah. That if he's of some Targaryen ancestry, like he could be coming back to claim, you know, the throne for his family in a sense or whatever, you know. Yeah. Which is interesting. So, okay. We could go on that for a little bit, but we'll move on just a little bit here. And
our trivia time.
Trivia.
All right, here
there
we
it
go.
is.
This one's kind of simple. I think it's probably an easy one here. During the sack of King's Landing during Robert's Rebellion, who persuades Aerys Targaryen, the Mad King, to let the Lannister men in?
Yeah, great question. So during the sack of King's Landing, who persuades Aerys Targaryen to let the Lannisters in?
Yeah, Aerys Targaryen the second.
Yep. The Mad King. All right.
All right. Here we go. Now on to a huge one here.
This will be good.
I believe she's a new patron, isn't she?
I think so. I don't know. I've been on vacation, so I don't know.
She is. Julie Krath, how you pronounce it? Pretty sure she's a new patron.
Kreith?
She messaged me and she said, "What is your preferred way of sending ravens?" And I just kind of say that again. We email. Then Sir Ezra gets those. Facebook message, Instagram. I get those. If you're a patron, Sir Ezra gets those. If you leave a voicemail, just remember we have like 3 minutes.
Yep.
To talk. But anyway is a good way of hitting us up.
We check them all, guys. We really do. So even like today we had Instagram, so we check that as well. We just try to kind of compile it. So
yeah, she was like, I just want to send this via email because it's definitely gonna be over 3 minutes here. So I have actually not really read this, but here we go. To the good sirs who lead the way on this noble podcast. Hey there, I'm not even going, and then in parentheses, I'm not even going to pretend I can keep up all that traditional Westeros type of speech for this length of Raven. I know this isn't the first time I've said this, but I'm repeating it once more for emphasis. I completely am loving every episode of the podcast since first turning in. Thank you very much. We always love those. It's my first time reading the first book in the series, and I love getting to hear other thoughts on the subject and having a new perspective or insight that I don't get from reading on my own, which leads me to wanting to contribute some thoughts, aka ramblings, in regards to the next chapter coming up, which is honestly one of my favorites, both in the book as well as the show. So focusing on Ned, I feel like this is the first time we truly see him stepping into the role of parent versus Lord of Winterfell. Not to say that any of the previous moments in the book display him in a bad light with parenting, but this one shows him as being the kind of panicked, worried, sick dad. Proper courtesies be damned. We see him having spent 4 days not knowing where his youngest daughter is, not knowing if she's safe or injured or anything, which makes the whole scene all the more stressful, in my opinion, because I remember watching on the show and thinking it was like Arya spent an afternoon out in the woods and being brought out to camp. That's a good point.
Yep, right. It was
very good. 4
point. Days.
Yeah, it is 4 days. I remember when we read that last week, I was like, wow, it's 4 days.
Long time.
Forgot about it. Yeah,
right.
And then you're right.
She was eating berries to
right. In the show, it makes it seem like it was just like that night.
Right.
And up to this point, we've always seen him very well composed and very proper and very aware of every word he says and action he makes. He even has to remind himself that you can't just run straight to his daughter, that he can't completely drop his propriety for his daughter. And then when he gets into the room, everyone's gathered in. He has no issues raising his voice with Robert, not caring in the slightest this man is his king. I think part of that is that it is Robert.
Well, yeah.
We kind of mentioned that.
Yeah.
This also, for me, has always been a big turning point for several characters in the first book, primarily Ned, Arya, and Sansa. This is the moment where it feels like Ned is truly seeing that Robert is not the man he once knew and loved as a brother. Up until this point, he seems to still kind of cling to the history they've shared and given him the benefit of the doubt. That despite all of the changes in Robert's, from the physical ones to his continuing desire to eradicate the Targaryens, it wasn't really until this point until it seems that Ned finally sees Robert as a changed man from the one he grew up with. Also with the line, "Do it yourself, then, Robert," he said with a voice cold and sharp as steel. "At least have the courage to do it yourself." It reminds me a whole lot of the moment with him and Bran back in the first chapter when Ned is explaining it must be him who swings the sword when a man is to be executed. A ruler who hides behind paid executioners soon forgets what death is. It just seems to fit so well with this new light that Ned is seeing his oldest friend in. Robert is no longer a man who sees death as something he deals out himself, not the one to carry out the sentence he puts to motion, and which also seems to play a role in his eagerness to take out Viserys and Daenerys, despite barely being a threat on a completely different continent. We also see in this chapter the first real pains of leaving home that both Sansa and Arya face. It is their first taste of how cruel the world can be outside of the safety of their home or Winterfell. We have Arya, who is 9 years old, who has spent 4 days with no one for probably the first time in her life, and Sansa, who's an 11-year-old who is trying her best to appease her father, protect the prince she's betrothed to, and keep the favor of the queen who she looks up to and who she'd like to be one day. And despite the animosity they have for one another, they will have throughout their time in King's Landing. This is a rare instance in which where we see both Stark girls on the same side, trying their best to stop any harm from coming to Lady, because even if her sister lied about things, Arya doesn't want her to lose her wolf too.
Yep.
And despite her desire to be a proper Southern lady of the court, Sansa will fight for Lady with all the strength a girl her age could have. Propriety be damned. It's an event that sticks with both of them moving forward, and while it does cause major tension between the two of them, it also gives them a taste of what's to come and leaves them both cautious of the people they encounter going forward in King's Landing. It also kind of adds the already lingering feeling that nothing good happens when the Starks leave the safety of the North. So that's saying that's my rambling about this chapter. How do you guys feel about the events it has on the effects of the Stark in the South going forward? Obviously, it can be considered a fairly small event compared to some of the others, as well as the rest of the series, but it does seem to have a big impact on your in your eyes, or does it kind of pale in comparison to the rest of what comes when they arrive in the capital? Also, random shout out to Renly Baratheon for not being able to keep his composure when it was mentioned that Joffrey got beat by a 9-year-old girl. Is one of my favorite moments, and something she really missed in the show. Looking forward to the next episode. Your faithful hedge knight, Lady Julie of House Crate. Yeah, I believe she's a patron.
Well, Lady Julie, thank you so much for the Raven. That I love it.
Sorry, I've just got to hydrate here.
Yeah, sorry. You just Sir Matt was having a little trouble there.
Yeah, a little dry here. Sorry. Yeah.
No, but it is actually. So the question boils down to, this situation with Lady, right, and them kind of their first, I guess, adversity that they're facing right here on the road, on the King's Road. Is this super significant? Yeah, I think it is. Right.
Oh, it's a huge turning point.
It is, and even though they're still,
it's
in the
really
same,
kind of the turning point.
Well, and here's the thing. So even though these two girls, these sisters, didn't like each other really necessarily, they end up on the same side here, and they end up defending. They're trying to defend Lady, right? And they don't want their direwolves something to happen to them. But then going forward, this is something that is kind of I don't know. It gets between the two of them.
Oh, absolutely.
I guess, and even though they're still family, it's something they're going to have to overcome. And we're looking forward to in the books when we have that meeting again and to see sort of what is talked about. We got that in the show, and it was interesting. But I think it's gonna be a lot different in the books. I think it's gonna be similar though, don't you? I think they're gonna come back together and be real, honky dory or whatever together. Right. But I think it is a big deal.
What if one of them's dead in the books? Gosh, that totally changed everything.
That would break my heart. But I don't know. There are other things that happen moving forward, but you do get the idea right out the gate here. When the Starks leave Winterfell or their direwolves are not near them, bad things happen.
Yeah, that's what we get a lot.
Yeah,
when you go south, bad happens.
Right, and for both of them, they lose their direwolf, and so things do not go well for them. Either one of them. They both have a really rough path, very different, but both extremely rough and very, very hard. A lot of hardships ahead. So, I don't think it pales. I think it's literally the first of many things. It's a huge point in the show.
And then I think it's also kind of how people respond to it. In that you have Arya, who immediately just kind of is like, I want nothing to do with these people anymore. And then you have Sansa, who still kind of views Joffrey as her betrothed. Mm-hmm. And then Joffrey going out of it is because they stop again and just kind of have a feast. Mm-hmm. And I think at that point, Joffrey is like, well, I'm done with Sansa.
Yeah.
It feels like because he doesn't walk her back. Remember, the Hound walks her back.
Yeah.
And explains that story of how he got his scars, just like the Joker.
He starts to kind of I
think it's at this moment where he's like, I'm out.
Yeah, well, he still has to do his duty, right? And in the show, they do a good job of the conversation with his mother about, have as many whores as you want, but she's going to be your wife. You're going to unite. That marriage would keep the kingdoms, at peace, right? So, I don't know. Any other thoughts? First of all, also huge shout out to Renly Baratheon for making fun of Joffrey. It's great, but. I don't know, man. There's, I thought another piece that she mentioned to go back up here, Robert and Ned's relationship. Mm-hmm. We talked about this in this last episode, and just how Ned doesn't recognize this person anymore.
Yeah.
This is not the guy he grew up
Well,
with.
like, do you think anyone else would be able to get away with walking in and be like, what's the meaning of this?
Yeah, no, exactly. And the line, him saying, do it yourself, right? Have the courage to do it yourself.
I don't think that Ned would say that to another king.
Well, probably not, but he maybe wouldn't have said that. He definitely has that relationship where he can do that, but I think he still would speak out in a,
slightly more proper way.
Yeah.
Right.
But yeah, he's sort of lost. I mean, Robert, in his eyes, he's losing. There's this respect that's being lost. I mean, to the point where we always do these pump up episodes before we watch a little bit of the show before we start recording. And Sir Matt decided to show me, when Ned Stark's last sort of command or whatever,
is to
call out the mountain and to denounce him and things.
Call
and
upon Beric Dondarrion.
Yeah, right. So I don't know. I think that's.
Well, the funny thing is that you get it more in the show because you get that scene where Robert is talking about. You have the two scenes. One where he's talking to Cersei about their kid they lost, and he's talking about what's better, one army or five. And you also get where Robert is having the scene with Jaime and Barristan Selmy, where he's talking about how was your first kill, and you get it here too in the books, where Robert's talking to Ned about how, and then at the tournament where he's like I just want to get out there and fight again and do all of these things again, but here he just shies away from it. I don't want anything to do with it. I just want to go back to drinking.
Right. Yeah. I don't even remember where I was going with my point exactly on that, but I just the difference between the two. It's just he's just noticing that his friend is not who he thought it was going to be, and he's disappointed. Oh, I know what I was going to say.
Well, you see
is that he's trying to make this once he gets to King's Landing. I think the scene that you showed me. Right. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. He's trying to kind of bring the kingdoms back in order a little bit. The crown's in debt.
Yep.
So he's, I think it's because of his friendship with, the king, and he's surrounded by, what he thinks they're just using him, right? They're just kind of playing him, and he's just sitting in this role. So he's trying to take back some of this, and he's trying to do things the right way. Now, I don't know. And he's trying to speak reason, on the small council and talk to him about this Targaryen peace and not do the hands turning and all this other stuff, but, it's just you're trying to undo years of bad habits and poor ruling of
absolutely,
this.
Yeah.
Jon Arryn was what was keeping it together, and really, again, Tywin Lannister. If you want to talk about how the Mad King was, jealous of what people were saying about Tywin when he was running the kingdom, then Tywin's still running the kingdom, and he has all this money that he's pumping into it, and with that money comes influence,
absolutely,
and sway. So. So, and I think Ned's trying to counter that. So, yeah, okay, all right, Lady Julie, thank you very much.
I'm gonna go ahead and let Sir Ezra read this next one.
Yeah, okay. So we got the old Ghost of Harrenhal is back this week, and challenging. And I would just go ahead and say
he's got messages every week. You know that, right?
Oh, it's great. I hope so. You know what? It's actually again, it's one of those things. Like I took the books. With me and on vacay, and I actually read quite a bit. And,
Ghost of Harrenhal seems pretty Dance of Dragons heavy.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah,
that's where I am with the whole Green Dream bit, where we're trying to do on Patreon, where we kind of talk about where are the players, where are the pieces, where are they at, and where could we go going forward. That's the most exciting part, right? Because you've got bits and pieces of Winds of Winter out there that we can look at. We're getting teased a lot, but still, this could go in so many different directions. So let's go ahead and read this here. Let's see. What other treasures did Euron Greyjoy, Lord Reaper of Pike, find in the ruins of Old Valyria? So he has Dragonbinder, a suit of Valyrian steel, Shade of the Evening, and his brother says he is unchanged and unaged since he last saw him. When Euron is crowned king, he changes his house sigil to a red eye held by two crows, supposedly a play on his nickname, Crow's Eye. Okay, so as I like to do with the Ghost, I'm going to take this in parts. Is that okay? Should I read the whole thing first?
Go right ahead.
I'm just going to read that part, and then we'll stick.
We'll get to the second part.
We'll
later.
get there in a second. Okay.
That's like a different question.
So the treasures. What other treasures did he find? Perhaps in Old Valyria. Who knows? I mean, there could be a lot of different things that he found there. I think it's interesting that I actually think he did go there. I think some people have kind of. I think it's questioned in the book a little bit as to whether he went there. He claims that he went there. I think he did, and I think that there's probably a lot of stuff that's it's feared. But I
Could
think
have dragon egg.
Yeah, exactly. He could, right? I mean, if he went to Valyria, yeah. The other piece with this is that other people have gone to these distant regions and stuff like that, and they've never came back, been killed or what have you, and he has returned. And he's returned with Dragon Binder, Valyrian steel, armor. And I think it's interesting. He points out, Shade of the Evening, which we're going to get to here in a second. The other thing that he brings back is he has all of these, he's got like a priest, and he's got the warlocks, right? He's got those warlocks. And so anyways, but he comes back, he changes his house sigil to a red eye held by two crows. And, his nickname is Crow's Eye. So I've often mentioned, and I've talked to Sir Matt about this, the idea that he is, or at one point could have been, had the sight, maybe had dreams, or had I don't know if I should call them green dreams or not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
but because there's a lot of different there's a lot of different take on who the three-eyed crow is. Okay, I'm sorry, I keep going back to it, but it's just it's I just can't.
We know who the three-eyed crow is.
No, I don't know. I don't think we do.
What?
Here's the thing. I think we know who's sitting, and I think we know the crow is a untrustworthy bird. It signifies death, and it's symbolic of something darker. The raven is a more honorable. I don't know. It's held in higher esteem, right? The raven,
yeah.
Right? So blood raven, right? And then you've got
blood raven is the three-eyed crow.
Is he?
Yeah.
Is he though? That's my thing. Is that there's a lot of theories that say that there's a lot of speculation that the three-eyed crow might be something else. It could be something trying to persuade, Bran to come where to see what we are calling blood raven. The three-eyed crow. But I don't know, man. I get okay. If you want to take the stance that like that blood raven is the three-eyed crow.
Yeah.
Does it say that actually in the book?
I believe so. I believe it because I believe he tells Bran that his name is Brendan Rivers.
That he's Brendan Rivers,
who is blood raven.
Who's blood raven?
Yeah.
But is he the three-eyed crow that Bran keeps seeing in his dreams?
Oh, you're saying it could. You're saying that the three-eyed crow. It may not actually be blood raven. Blood raven may be attached to the tree, but it could be it's like a power or a god, and it's acting using him.
Have you ever go pull up the wiki right now?
I have it up.
Okay. Did you type in three-eyed crow?
Yeah.
Okay. What's it say?
The three-eyed crow appears to Bran Stark in his dreams. It is known by the Children of Forest as the Last Green Seer. In the television adaptation of Game of Thrones, it is known as the Three-Eyed Raven. Bran has dreams. Dance of Dragons. With the assistance of Cold Hands, Bran, Hodor, and the Reeds reach the Three-Eyed Crow in a cave with the Haunted Forest. It is not an actual bird, but a man who says he was once a lord called Brendan. He is a pale, skeletal man in a rotted black clothing and a weirwood throne with tangled roots. His skin is white, aside from the red blotch on his neck and cheek. Brendan has fine, white, long hair, long enough to reach the floor. He is missing one eye, while the other is red. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Sounds an awful lot like
Brendan Rivers.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, okay, fair. Now, here, hold on a second, though.
Okay.
I wish I had it. I wish, of all the books that I don't have right now, I don't have a Dance of Dragons, which is killing me. So I went and bought all these, and I've always had the electronic version and listened to them and stuff like that. And I look up
the physical version.
I want the physical, so during these podcasts I can flip to it and actually read it.
Not have to skim through.
And actually read it. And what I'll do here, I wasn't going to do this, but I'm going to make a plug to a couple different YouTube channels. I want you guys to go check these out and look up some information on the three-eyed crow.
Yeah.
And look up, Order of the Green Hand has a great three-eyed crow theory.
Yeah.
And it's all about the symbolism behind,
Right.
old Nan telling him that it's a tricksy bird. So it's just the idea that we would, Blood Raven would turn into the three-eyed crow. And I'm saying the way it's presented in the book, yeah, that I get that whole piece that he, comes off as the three-eyed crow.
Gotcha.
The one who Bran is seeking and who is appearing in his dreams and stuff. But I'm not so sure, I'm not completely sold that the three-eyed crow who is appearing in his dreams, that it's not a different power at work here,
right?
Or a good like the great other type of situation,
right? Well, the thing is that I've read a lot of theories on the three-eyed crow, especially on Reddit, and they talk about how who was the three-eyed crow before Blood Raven? Mm-hmm. Now in the show, it's totally different in the show. So if you are somebody who just watches the show, it's the three-eyed. They call him in the show. They just call him the three-eyed Raven.
Yeah.
There's no crow.
It's straightforward.
Raven. It's just straightforward.
Brendan Rivers.
And I believe he also. Well, it's not. He never
didn't
says
say Brendan Rivers, but
he's just a guy who is the three-eyed Raven, and I believe it's mentioned that he's like 1,000 years old. So it's just like the show just takes its own version of it. So you completely have to separate the two. In the book, because was there a person that was there before Blood Raven, and was the three-eyed crow before? Or was it just the power of weirwood trees? So that's I think what Sir Ezra is talking about, is that there's a lot of these different theories that, like, Blood Raven isn't just like Blood Raven may be the current three-eyed crow. He may be like a aspect of the god that is the three-eyed crow. Is that it's not just specifically Blood Raven, and then it's Bran. There's a bigger thing at work. There are theories that the three-eyed crow actually works for the others.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so here's the thing. So when the three-eyed crow first, and we're getting this week, I think, aren't we? Yeah. Isn't Bran coming?
This
up
is
Bran.
The Sunday chapter is Bran's first kind of green dream, where
right?
He's
haunted.
He's not haunted, but he sees the three-eyed crow.
Yeah, he's trying to get him to fly and things like that. So the three-eyed crow, when presented there, is all about trying to open his third eye. Keeps tapping, and there's this burning on his forehead, right? And so I don't know. To me, they've always been. I see this force that's at work in his dreams. Could that be Brendan Rivers being the embodiment, that the vessel in which we're using to what have you? Yes, but then that gets back to all those questions where we talked about, was Brendan Rivers tricked into this? Is this what's best for the realm? And should Bran be trusting in this three-eyed crow?
Right.
We're gonna have to dedicate a whole episode to this, because I'm gonna have to bring some text and stuff to the table on this one, because there's just a lot more to it than because okay, where if we go off the TV show, it's presented to us that Hodor is just Hodor. Hodor just says Hodor, and there's such a bigger meaning behind all of that. We have people who we just got done talking about Mance Rayder possibly being someone else. And all these people who were taking these little tiny lines and were saying, no, they could be this person. And we know Mance Rayder is actually supposedly killed in the books, and then, is actually sent to Winterfell on a rescue mission. Yeah. So my point is that the way it's presented in the books, and I hope people will send us ravens about this, because I'd love to talk about this next week more, their thoughts on the three-eyed crow. And really, what is the three-eyed crow's purpose? Is it a good force? What's really going on here with the children, and their connection to the others, I think we get a little jaded from the show, because we've seen how they're created, right, in the show, and we're kind of like, oh my God, the children of the forest did this, and is it some connection to the old gods, or, as Melisandre says, the great other, what's the difference?
Right.
So, all right, sorry, that was a little crazy, but, I just think there's way more to it, man.
Well, I mean, think about this, is that
my whole point with that real quick was Euron being called Crow's Eye.
Yeah, we'll get back.
Hold on. Yeah. The Crow, in Order of the Green Hand, I'll give them a shout out here. They say that they made a very good point the other day. I was watching one of their episodes. The Crow's Eye, they're almost theorizing that Euron has had crow's dreams, where the crow has appeared to him,
right,
and tried to when Bran is falling, he sees all the others who have fallen before him, who did not fly. They did not take off. He sees the skulls and the bones, right? And then he does soar and takes off. So he's the disciple, the chosen one who is to go beyond the wall. Well, perhaps Euron was one of those who had those dreams, or who was, who the three-eyed crow was trying to reach, beforehand. I don't know. Just a thought.
Well, I mean, think about this. I had another point, but we'll get off. We'll save it we'll just sooner or later we're just gonna have a big discussion about Blood Raven, the three-eyed crow. All that stuff.
All right.
But what if
people are gonna think I'm crazy, by the way, but
no,
it's okay.
Fine. Well, so what if we talked about this before? You and I have looked up theories that the three-eyed crow is actually kind of working for the others. Mm-hmm. That's a thing, and so possibly, if you're Blood Raven and you are working for the others, maybe like not he didn't want to, but he was kind of forced to, right? Which makes a lot of sense actually. Now that I'm thinking about it, God, sorry, I'm just tinfoils going nuts over here because oh my God, it's all just clicking in my head. Okay, so hear me out.
Okay.
So, what if it's like Blood Raven is kind of like being torn, right, between two, and he's kind of like could Blood Raven kind of separate the two, right? Like it's almost like a parasite, right? Where it's like taking over, but you can still kind of fight it.
Yeah.
So what if it's like the whole idea? There's people that Blood Raven warned Rhaegar, told him of the thing through dreams or whatever. But then what if like the three-eyed crow that is like essentially let's say taking over Blood Raven, is working for the others, right? So the three-eyed crow. Maybe it looks at Bran and says, well, maybe Bran is who could tear down the wall, because maybe he has the connection through Bran the Builder,
the blood.
Maybe he could be Bran the Builder. There's all those theories.
Okay.
And so he views him as that, and then maybe he views Euron Greyjoy as, well, Euron Greyjoy just got the horn. Let's say, for example, Euron Greyjoy has the Horn of Winter, which they thought maybe was beyond the wall. We don't know. Maybe he has it, or he has Dragonbinder, all this stuff. And so maybe that's like the Three-Eyed Crow's ultimate purpose is actually to serve the others.
That's what, is that it's sort of it's a way in which the I don't know. It's an emissary of the great other or something. It's something that's like you said, working for. Yeah.
Right. Because think about this. So Melisandre talks about how in the chapter in A Storm of Swords. I'm just in A Storm of Swords right now, guys. So I'm going to keep referencing it a lot.
That's fine.
Where Davos is in the cell and Melisandre comes down and she has the torch. She's going to take it away and she's talking about R'hllor. And she's talking about how like none of the other gods matter. It's all going to come down to two things. She's like light, darkness, life, death. Ice and fire, R'hllor, and the Great Other. So, the Great Other, let's say, is the Weirwoods, right? Okay. And like ice. And then what fights it is dragons. And then so you have Westeros, Essos, that aspect too. R'hllor comes from Essos. So it's this idea of like dragons versus Weirwoods.
Yeah. See, and that's my thing. Going back to the very beginning when we started all of this was to dive into the gods. And I've heard Gert talk about this a little bit, and that he's never going to come out and say there is just one ruling god or whatever. It basically it's the whole piece with Tyrion's is it Tyrion's riddle? So someone gives the riddle about where is the power is in where you believe. Is it in the wealthy merchant? Is it in the king? Is it in the swordsman? It's wherever the power is. Where your belief is where. We'll
think about this, right? Let's also here's another thought I had. So the Great Other, right, from the land of always winter or whatever, it may have faced a man-made setback by the wall, right? Like the wall drastically limited its potential. So you could almost argue that was like their doom, right? And then when the men came over, they chopped down a lot of the weirwood trees. Okay. Like the Andals, stuff like that.
And that's if you're saying if the weirwoods are connected.
If the weirwoods are connected to the Great Other.
That's an if. Just
one total if here, yeah. We don't have there's no connection.
No, it's a good. No, I think it's.
I'm just saying it's possible because
the rabbit hole I was going down.
Well,
earlier.
that's part of this theory is that the werewoods do serve the Great Other. So wouldn't say like the doom of the Land of Always Winter be the wall being created like that drastically limited it. The the Andals coming over, chopping down the werewoods, and then the doom of Valyria, which you could almost argue is maybe R'hllor because it's like a volcano. Right.
Yep.
And so dragons, you could almost argue like that. Maybe we just know that the doom happened. Maybe it was a man-made thing. Maybe it wasn't an inflicted thing. So it is totally possible that perhaps now that was the doom of Valyria. That was like R'hllor's major setback. So.
Yeah, I get you. Couple gods having
because when you look at other gods,
like
when we were in a World of Ice and Fire, it was a week ago, definitely some chapters ago, when we were talking about the Rhoynar. Remember that, like the turtle god and stuff like that, and how they basically were just crushed.
Right, Mother Rhoyne.
Yeah.
Yep. And they had their water wizards.
Right.
And priests and things. Yeah.
And then the old gods face a setback essentially when the Seven comes over. And
yeah. That's just a piece I've always been intrigued by. It's just like who, like the old gods. Who the hell are the old gods?
Yeah, I don't know.
You know what I mean? And like, what's the difference between the old gods and the Great Other type of thing? And I guess what's really thrown me is when I saw the show. What really jacked me up is when I saw the show and I saw the children, creating the others or the White Walkers or what have you. You know what I mean? So you remember that they press the dragon glass into his chest and they create whatever they created. Okay, let's get back to Ghost of Harrenhal's Raven. Is that cool?
Yep.
We went down a super big rabbit hole there, and I apologize. Anytime I start to talk about the Three-Eyed Crow or Blood Raven, I'm working on. So the problem here is that we're working on a couple of different theories and different things outside of the podcast, and so sometimes I just want to dive into all of it, but we need to save it. So, moving on. Let's see. Supposedly, okay. Could he raise the dragon egg that was thrown into the sea? Is Pyat Pree on his? So that's the warlock, right? From Karth. Could that warlock, could Pree be on his crew of mutes and hungry for vengeance against Daenerys? If anyone could find her in Essos, it would be Pyat. Azor Ahai wasn't a super nice guy. He killed Nissa. Euron has already killed plenty of kin and has a taste for glory. Could he be Azor Ahai come again? So let's hang with those two questions for a second, Sir Matt. Could he raise the dragon egg that was thrown into the sea? Sure.
Possibly.
Yeah, I think.
Well, a lot of people have tried.
Right, and I think recently, so I said I wasn't going to do it, but I did. Winds of Winter, some of those chapters. Aaron Dampier has, I think, a dream or vision, I'm not sure, when he is actually drinking. To go back up here, it was the Shade of the Evening. He's drinking. He's captured by the warlocks. 4 of the warlocks take him, or 3, and he has visions of Euron doing crazy shit like that. I mean, he's got all tentacles on the Iron Throne and raising the Kraken type of situation. So yeah, there's definitely some evidence already in Winds of Winter that we could have something, like that. I don't know if it's going to be a dragon or not, or a dragon egg, but something from the sea. The powers that be there, the god, of the sea, rising, to the Ironborn who worship the god of the sea, the drowned god, and. Yeah, so I think that's a yes. Could happen. Is Pree one of the crew, one of the actual warlocks that was captured? I think he is. I think they actually. There's. I didn't think that at first. Just to be honest with you, I totally kind of as Sir Matt did recently with the Daenerys chapter. You were telling me they get kind of boring at some points. I'm just going to go ahead and say it. There are points with Daenerys that I'm like, okay, let's get back to Westeros.
Right. And even the show felt like that. I was just kind of like, are we ever going to get
anywhere. Yeah, I know. It just is a long time.
And
but
it's just
she's on her own, sort of.
It
you
is.
know what I mean?
And,
separated
she's
from,
on her and when you get later into it, and you get to like Dance of Dragons and stuff like that, and like Tyrion and those guys go
Yeah,
over
yeah,
there.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, it picks
Yes.
up. But
Yes.
yeah, right now I'm listening through A Storm of Swords, and to be honest, right now since people started talking about like reading it, and we've heard this before, reading the books like through other people, just like a few specific people. I've just kind of been listening to like picking like 3 people and just kind of listening to their.
Right.
I think it's a super cool way to do it.
Right, it is. But to do that though, you have those characters in Westeros bunched up, and sometimes Daenerys and this whole bit with her in the House of the Undying gets
Daenerys
a little
would
bit
actually be a really cool one to just read through
by
as
itself.
her. Yeah,
yeah. That you'd have to be really dedicated just to dive into it. Because
and I will say one last thing here before you get back to your theory. The Daenerys chapters also I've noticed because we listened to the audiobook. They're really long.
Yeah,
because they're so like spread out and different, and they just in a Game of Thrones, you have a lot of like where Robert is talking about killing her, and then so it'll go from like a chapter of Eddard where it's talking about killing her to Daenerys. And it clicks.
Yeah.
Whereas in the Clash of Kings and Storm of Swords, you don't really have that connection, and so it's just kind of like it almost feels odd in the book.
You know, another thing that it does too is like as they go to Karth and these different places, Gur has to explain and describe this new city, has to describe these people. You know, I get that happens with Game of Thrones, but you have more people when Jon is talking to Tyrion. We don't have to rehash out who these people are again and who we're meeting,
where we're at,
yeah,
what King's Landing looks like and smells like.
Yeah. So you get with Daenerys as she's moving along, in her journey, it is we get just more of that, I guess, and what have you. So, but is Pyat Pree one of the mutes, one of the crew mutes? Is he one of the warlocks that was captured? Yeah, I think he is now that I've gone back and looked at it. It sounds, I mean, he set off after her. I remember this after she leaves Karth. Like they're super pissed at her because of in the House of the Undying. She I think she burns a couple of them, or something. Kills, I actually think, in the House of the Undying, which is crazy because it's the House of the Undying and she kills people in there. So anyways,
it's like the Titanic, man. It'll never sink.
Right, exactly. Yeah. But so anyways, they're super pissed, and yeah, I think he does set off in this vengeful, wants to kill her, take her dragons type of thing. And the ghost is asking, if anyone could find her in Essos, it's Pyat. And I think the ghost is right. But I don't know that Euron Greyjoy knows that. So would he be helpful in finding her? Yes. Or really what I think they're doing is they're teaching Euron different, black arts, dark arts, magic, whatever it may be. Because the whole piece, as the ghost mentions, he comes back looking unchanged, unaged. He's definitely in some sorcery type of situation. He's delving into the dark arts a little bit. And he's using these warlocks and this priest and the different things that he's gotten on his journey to just build himself up.
Right.
So now I don't think he would trust Pyat enough just to send him off on his own to try and get Daenerys, but he might use him and his magic in some way to locate her.
Right.
So okay, the Azor Ahai wasn't a super nice guy. He killed Nisa. He's already killed plenty of kin, right? What do you think about that, Sir Matt? Like the idea that Azor Ahai, right, has to stab,
like a lion and
right, yeah, it has to kill essentially to be the Azor Ahai, the
well, yeah,
great warrior,
right? Yeah, see, that's why other people think, oh, maybe he'll stab Tyrion or then Daenerys, or it could be. I really am starting to like this Jaime as the
Azor Ahai
as Azor Ahai, because if Jaime were to stab Cersei, it would essentially be all in one. And it would fulfill the Valonqar prophecy, do a lot of things.
Yeah.
Make a lot of sense. And then I really just like the idea of Azor Ahai being not Jon Snow. like just being ordinary, just being
someone we wouldn't expect necessarily.
Someone
maybe.
we expect, yeah.
Who's like sort of kind of middle of the row type of character. And Euron will be someone that we wouldn't expect.
Right.
Euron Greyjoy. That'd be crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be. Would you like that? I mean, would that even be cool? It's interesting.
It would. Well, it's definitely not happening in the show, but
but
in the books, it's possible. Yeah.
Because Euron's out collecting all these different, artifacts.
Yeah,
and
Euron to me in the books though seems kind of like
power hungry.
Well, he seems kind of like what Stannis is, where Stannis is just kind of going along with it, and Melisandre believes, Stannis is Azor Ahai. Stannis is this. That's what Euron kind of seems like to me.
Okay, so not someone who truly is because he's called an his brother Aaron, the priest. Mm-hmm. The drowned priest kind of mentions that he's not religious, and he doesn't really actually he's not beholden to any faith, and he's not a religious man. So, I could see that him not really taking it serious and just gathering these artifacts that he thinks are going to help him take control, and rule supreme. So, yeah, I don't know. It's a good thought though. Let's see another interesting thought here from the Ghost. Oh my gosh, this one. Okay, so the vagus nerve bypasses the spinal cord and goes straight to the brain. Even for people whose spines have been interrupted and are no longer connected top to bottom, those people can still come to climax and have heirs. Bran cannot be ruled out in continuing the Stark line. Ghost of Harrenhal.
This is we're gonna every week. I feel like we're just gonna have a new scientifical thing that was well over our head, because I was a history major with a psych minor, and I guess psychology is somewhat of a science, but it's not a medical one.
Great. So you're no help at all on that.
No help, at all. So
I don't know. I think it would be kind of cool. It'd be neat. I don't know if any of that's. I have no idea.
I have no idea,
honestly.
Either.
So,
but
food for thought. I mean,
but I do think in the show, Bran just kind of brushes Mira Reed off, and she just kind of leaves. I don't think we're going to see her again in the show. But in the book, I do think that Bran and Mira might get together.
Really?
Yeah.
Dude, I'll tell you what. I love Mira Reed.
Well, because
I think she's super cool.
Reeds are going to be a part in the books. I think the whole Howland Reed thing is going to be a part in the books.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that there's definitely going to be something going on with them, whereas in the show they kind of just were like, well, Bran saw it and now Sam knows about it, and that's just kind of it. But in the books, I think the whole Howland Reed totally different.
Mm-hmm.
Howland Reed's definitely going to show up and definitely tell us about it.
I just have to say it one more time. Do you think the Three-Eyed Crow is tricking Jojen? Like, do you think the Three-Eyed Crow tricked Jojen in his vision?
Yes.
You remember he like the vision that Jojen has is that there is a winged what is it?
Mm-hmm.
It's a winged
I can't think. Yeah, but
dire wolf or something.
Maybe,
some creature, a dragon.
Yeah.
That's a dire wolf, I think. In the crypts of Winterfell, and they have to go.
That's why he decides to go. He tells Howland.
He tells
Reed
that to his father,
and Howland Reed sends him.
Right.
Yeah.
So so you see now, if you're going to say the Three-Eyed Crow is Brynden Rivers, Blood Raven.
Yeah.
And he's so the Three-Eyed Crow
Thousand Eyes and One
sends this green dream, or maybe Jojen just has this green dream, right?
Yeah.
But he seems to know. He also does know the Three-Eyed Crow, though.
Yeah.
That he understands when Bran talks about that. He gets it. He knows what he's talking about. Is there some trickery in that? Why does he have that?
Yeah.
That dream, that his dreams come true, right? He knows that they will. He's foreseen when he will die.
Right.
Jojen has these different, visions. So, what did they unleash? What did they set free? Down there. Is it Bran himself being freed because he's the wolf who can fly? We were about to get to that chapter where he actually takes flight. Mm-hmm. His third eye is opened. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry. I'm just going to go ahead and say it. There's a lot more going on there, and I would love to hear people's thoughts. Does people in our book club do a little research, a little digging on the Three-Eyed Crow, and some of these dreams and visions and things that are associated with it. Maybe I'm a complete lunatic and I have no idea what I'm talking about, which is what half the people listening probably think. But I don't know, man. I'm Sir Ezra the Watchful, and I'm just looking out for, lots of different angles. So,
yeah, I mean, here's some quotes by Brendan, a.k.a. Bloodraven, a.k.a.
the Three-Eyed Crow. Okay, what?
So let me see.
By the way, thank you, Ghost of Harrenhal. We just went down a different rabbit hole here, so let's carry on.
I wore many names when I was quick, but even I had a mother, and the name she gave me at her breast was Brendan. This is the Three-Eyed Crow to Mira Reed. And then he says, I have my own ghost Bran, a brother that I loved, a brother that I hated, a woman I desired. Through the trees, I see them still, but no word of mine has ever reached them. The past remains the past. We can learn from it, but we cannot change it.
Okay, now see, those are direct connections to Brendan Rivers. Yeah. Okay, so I believe, just to be clear on this, that he is talking to Brendan Rivers. Okay? I'm just not so sure that the Three-Eyed Crow who he is seeking after, that has appeared to him...
It's like not a conscious Brendan Rivers.
Possibly.
Is that the three? Like,
so I'm not even going that far. I'm even saying that like you said, like the parasite type of situation where, maybe Brendan is a part of that and is sort of the crow is coming there. I just get back to this. It's maybe what I'm getting to is that Brendan Rivers is not necessarily looking out for the realm like you've always said that he is, because the crow is a tricksy bird.
Yeah.
And it's a liar.
Well, I think I think it's possible he's like possessed and he's like kind of fighting.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. The Three-Eyed Crow itself, that's appearing here and there. I'm just trying to
right. And also he says, so Brendan Rivers, Bloodraven, says that he has tried to reach out to people and he can't do it. Mm-hmm. So why is it that Bran can?
Right, and we only know that from
the show.
But
I definitely think it's going to happen in the books.
Yeah. Yeah.
Otherwise, there's no reason for Bran to become it.
Yeah. Now, here's something interesting too. Jojen says he's not.
I also think that's a load of BS.
What?
I've tried to reach out to people and I can't do it.
Because he's talking about altering the past, though.
Well,
but he can still reach these people in the present, could he not?
I think he.
That's what he did with Bran, isn't it?
I think it's it's possible he did that with Bran. I think it's think Ghost is,
unless he's not the
dire wolf, and I believe he communicated with Rhaegar.
Okay. So here's my thing.
I think the whole Rhaegar just decided to suddenly fight one day. I think Bloodraven had something to do with it.
Read that quote again.
Also, I'm just gonna go ahead and say it.
Yeah.
Back to Lady Stoneheart. I think
she's a part of all this. God dang it. Okay, so we should probably just table it. I don't even know. I just there's more to this than meets the eye. That's all I'm gonna say, my friend. I don't know. Any other thoughts on the Three-Eyed Crow before you're pondering?
I'm just pondering.
Yeah. But my thing is, if he can, what is it that you just had there that you just read the whole piece with Mira, the quote that you just read?
Oh, where he's just he said, I wore many names when I was quick, but even I had a mother, and the name she gave me at her breast was Brendan. That's from A Dance with Dragon, Bran 3. And then when he's talking to Bran, I have my own ghost Bran, a brother that I loved, who was he had a half. It was
Bittersteel?
No, Daemon. Not Daemon Blackfire.
Darren. Okay.
A brother that I hated.
Okay.
No, because he had Daemon and
see, because his brother would have been like Bittersteel was his half brother.
Right.
I
don't think Daemon was his brother. Daemon Blackfire and Darren. Those were his nephews.
Were they? Okay. No, I think they might have been one of the bastards that were
now I gotta look
legitimized. Yeah, you look that up. But a point that
he is the son of Aegon the Fourth.
He is? Well, then okay, then that's
so Aegon the Fourth had so many freaking kids.
Bastards. He was one of the bastards then. Yeah. Because that would then make sense.
Yeah. Anyway.
Anyway, so but what I'm trying to say is that keep reading that passage with Mira where he says he's tried to reach people, and
sorry, I went into Aegon the Fourth. You're talking about the one. So I have my own ghost Bran, a brother that I loved, a brother that I hated, a woman he is not saying he only had this many brothers. He's saying
exactly
a brother, right? A woman I desired, Shara Seastar.
Yeah.
Through the trees, I see them still, but no word of mine has ever reached them. The past remains the past.
Okay.
We can learn from it, but we cannot change it. But that doesn't say, he's saying nothing about altering the present.
Exactly. So
Corn.
He's just saying that he
king.
Exactly. So he has looked into the past. His words cannot reach his maybe they're long deceased, siblings. One that he loves, one that he hates, etc. But he does have the ability to, if you believe, as you've said, he's influencing Bran and others in dreams. Then there's that piece. Where he's influencing them to come to him. Now, my other question to you is Green Seers, okay? He's called the last Green Seer, okay? Green Seers, are they just having visions? So you're going to have to hear me out here for a second. Are they just having visions that are sent to them by what? A different force, some power out there?
Could be anything, I think.
Or can other Green Seers send other Green Seers messages and get into their dreams?
I think it's possible.
And are those different things like skin changers and warging, which is where basically you're moving in and out of different people's, minds and thoughts and things like that. So I think sometimes we confuse the terms when we talk about, the influence that one individual is having on another versus someone having a true like green dream, like a vision of the future and things that will happen type of thing. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Okay, because even Bran has that dream in which he at the same time is sort of like connected with Ghost and Jon Snow, which we've talked about. And I think we need to do a little more digging, kind of sift out the differences between the two. So might help give us some clarity moving forward. So any other thoughts, man?
No.
Okay, sorry. We've exhausted the three-eyed crow situation, so we apologize. We will do a little more digging and come back stronger on that front because I think there's a lot to delve into. And again, always watchful for different angles. Thank you to the Ghost, Lady Julie. Who else do we have here? We had Sir Robert of Newcastle. We appreciate that. Sir Grant the Yellow Knight. And so on. Regine, everyone who has sent us, Sir Steve for the voicemail. We appreciate all the Ravens. If you sent us one and we didn't get to it, that's because it's coming up next week. We have more Ravens to kind of sift through. You can send those to btkcast at gmail.com. And, check out our Patreon page if you want to support the show. Get a little shout out at the beginning of each episode. We kind of do some stuff there where we man the wall, and you guys can pick a sigil. Work with Sir Matt and I to create house names, sort of a I don't know, just kind of get involved in the kingdoms we're creating. Our Westeros. All right, anything else, Sir Matt?
Nope.
Okay.
What do we have here? Here we go. In the words of House Fossaway, a taste of